Let's take a look at the questions on homework number 405. We'll start with visual, domain, and range. So the domain and range describe the shape of the graph when moving from left to right for domain along the x-axis and up and down for range along the y-axis. So when we look here at the question, it says to determine the range. Now, if you have two choices on how you'd like to answer the question. You can use inequality notation, or you can use interval notation. With the inequality notation, you'll use two of these symbols with an x or a y in the middle. And with interval notation, you'll simply use the least value and the greatest value. So when we're talking about the range, that is the shape of the graph from how low down it goes, which is here, and how high up it goes, which is here. So you can see that the distance is from -8 all the way up to +7. So from -8 to +7 would be the span of my y values. Now because this graph is solid, and solid points are touching my highest values, then these would be less than or equal to symbols. Now as I read from left to right, I'm saying -8 is less than my range, and my range is less than +7. So it means I'm in between these two values. So I can type it exactly like that using inequality notation, or I can type a -8 with a hard edge bracket and a +7 with a hard edge bracket. It's up to you which you prefer to use. So since it's quicker, I'm just going to use the interval notation. -8 is my lowest value, +7 is my greatest value. Let's try another one. This one asks about the domain. The domain is how far left and how far right you are along the graph. So my left value here is at -11, and my right value here is at +10. Now you'll notice I have some closed circles and an open circle. So this one would be a parentheses, and this one would be a bracket. If I were to type it using inequality, I would put an x in the middle this time because we're talking about domain. Now, because the -11 is solid, that would get an equal to sign, but because the +10 is open, that would not get an equal to sign. So I'm going to type that using these symbols here. -11 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 10. So -11 is less than or equal to x, which is less than +10. One more. This one says the domain. The domain here stretches from -4 to +5. So from -4 to +5, and both of these circles are open, so I need two parentheses, from -4 to +5. Alright, let's take a look at the next task. Complete the square constant. So in order to complete the square, you have to move your c value to the right-hand side, giving us x squared plus 13x space equals -31. Now we don't have to solve it, it's just asking us what number would be added here. And that number is always half of b squared. Half of b squared. So the number we're looking for here is half of b, which is half of 13. And we could say 13 halves, or we could say 6.5, and we want to square it. So we're going to get 42.25 if we're using decimals, or 169/4 if we're not. I'm pretty sure they typically use fractions, so I'm going to put my answer in fraction form. Let's see what they say. So half of 13 squared, or 13 squared over 2 squared. Let's see. Alright, you can do it in either form. You can give decimal form or you can give fraction form. If this is the Regents though, all of the multiple choices will be fractions. So try a couple of those. Alright, let's try one more here. trying to find this constant value in order to complete the square. So this number would move over, giving me x squared minus 8x equals 1. And the number I want here is half of 8 squared. Well, half of 8 is an integer, so I'm going to reduce that. And 4 squared is 16. So it looks like my value here is going to be 16. Half of b squared. All right, let's take a look at the next one. The next one asks you to actually complete the square. So it wants us to do all of that work. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get this in the right format by moving this one that way and this one that way. So x squared minus 14x, big space, equals negative 45. And now what we want to do is we want to find half of b, right, which would be 7. We want to square it. And that's what we're going to add to both sides. And when we do that, we're going to get a nice integer value over here. Negative 45 and 49 is 4. And that's great because we know we're going to square root it eventually. Because the goal is to get a perfect square over here when we factor. So you can use the trinomial diamond pattern here, something that multiplies to 49 but adds to negative 14. Or you can use the shortcut, which is square root the first, square root the last, and take the sign from the middle. There you go. All right, now for the solving. I'm going to square root both sides. And don't forget, when you square root a value, you actually get 2 answers. So don't forget to put your plus minus sign in front of your 2. Now when I add 7 to both sides, I get this statement. X is equal to 7 plus 2, or x is equal to 7 minus 2. Right, so my 2 answers are going to be 9 or 5 in any order. 9 or 5. All right, so I'll type that in here with a comma. 9 and 5. See, they have those braces for us, the squiggly braces, for when we have more than one number. All right, let's solve another one by setting this up properly. So I want an x on the left and a constant on the right. So I get x squared plus 12x, big space, equals negative 20. So when I do half of b squared, I got to go find b. b is 12. So half of 12 is 6, and 6 squared is 36. With a plus sign here, I'm going to add 36 to both sides. I'm going to do some math on the right. Negative 20 plus 36 is 16. But on the left, I'm going to write it as a perfect square factor. Square root the first, square root the last, steal a sign from the middle. All right, now for my solution. Square root both sides. And don't forget to write your plus or minus sign for your square root answer. All right, now I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides, and it would look like this. Negative 6 plus or minus 4. So here's my 2 answers. Negative 6 plus 4, which is negative 2. Sorry, that's sloppy. And then my other answer, negative 6 minus 4, which is negative 10. All right, so there's my 2 answers, negative 2 and negative 10. Negative 2, comma, opens up my negative other space. Oh, I wrote negative 10 first. That's okay. It doesn't matter what order it's in. All right, you need to see one more. One more. Let's do this. So this one is already in the format that we need. X squared minus 8x, big space, equals 9. Half of b squared is 4. 4 squared. Sorry, my marker is really wonky. Is 16. Oh boy, that's terrible. All right, 9 plus 16 is 25. Over here, I need to factor it. I square root the first, I square root the last, and I steal the sign from the middle. Now it's time to square root both sides. Don't forget, when you square root your value on the right, you get a plus or minus sign. Plus or minus 5. And now I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So I'm going to get positive 4 plus or minus 5. And that's going to give me a negative 1 and a 9. So negative 1 and 9 is what I'm going to write here. Negative 1 and 9. With a comma in between. Alright, that'll help you with the first few lessons here, and then the next video will help you with the rest.